What I was just playing there were several major and minor chords along what's called the chordal scale in the key of D. And for me, this was a huge tool in unlocking my songwriting a little bit, making my playing a little bit more pleasurable to me, and definitely making the chords that I used, I was able to keep things in key a lot better. Of course, there's some problems that come with that too. Sometimes you lose a little bit of creativity, I think. If you try to stay in key too much, you get afraid to use some of those chords that have some dissonance to them. But this really did unlock a lot of theory for me when I learned about this, the chordal scale. So that's what I'm going to show you in this video. So what we have here are a couple chord diagrams. Like I said, we use major and minor. I am going to show you one diminished shape because it technically fits in that key. I didn't use it in that little introduction. It would be a C sharp diminished in that key right there. So what this is it's a movable shape. Of course, pretty much any shape on the guitar is movable on those same strings. So to say something is a movable shape is a little bit redundant. All the shapes on the guitar are movable. You may not always like the way they sound when you move them, but they are movable. And there's a certain process we'll follow using these chords. So instead of saying that this is a D major chord, the way I'm going to play it is a D major. But I just want to show you the actual shapes. So the major shape, I play with first finger, third finger, and then second finger. So you'll see that in the major shape. I'll use my mouse to point where that is. So there's the major shape right there. First finger, third finger, second finger. The minor shape, second finger, third finger, first finger. So of course you could write those down or pause the video and practice these a little bit. And then if I'm using that same root, even though this last shape looks a little bit different, I'm actually going to play it this way. So I got first finger, third finger, second finger. So kind of like a D, like here, but it's almost like I stretch it a little bit. So there's a D. This would be a D diminished. A D diminished has a flattened fifth and a flattened third. So again, we have D major, or the major shape, minor shape, and then the diminished shape. Now we'll follow that onto this next screen here. And what we're doing here is the root of our chord, like the D major chord, is on the B string. So if you remember right, that B string is the second string from the bottom, or you might hear some teachers call it the top. It's the top in pitch, and that is the B string. So the third fret is your D string. Let me bring this video back up here. When I bring this D, when I play this D, that makes this D major chord. When I play it this way, it's D minor. My root is still on the B string, that's the D note. And then my diminished, D diminished. So when I move that note, I have D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Every time I move that note, the chord moves along with it and it changes the name of the chord. So this is D major. Now I'm going to move it to an E, but I'm actually going to change it for this exercise. I'm going to change it to E minor. Now I could play all diminished if I wanted. If I want to play a D diminished, and then an E diminished, and then an F sharp diminished, and then a G diminished. It would sound like that. That sounds a little bit odd. We wouldn't normally hear those chords in a row, But that doesn't mean you couldn't use them. Again, rules are, especially in music, are made to be broken and moved around. The key to remember is wherever I move that chord, that's what changes the name of it. And the root is what changes its name. Now let me show you the chordal scale. There's a little bit of symbols that I use here that actually make that scale. Let's see if I can think about what I'm saying a little bit. It makes that scale sound right. And so a lot of times when we think about how something sounds, we want those tones to fit together, and sometimes they don't fit together, and that's what we call out of key. So to stay in key, I'm going to use two different symbols here. To stay in key, from this capital I means a major chord, and I take a whole step to my lowercase i's, which is the second. So I use that capital I as the root. This is my second. Take another whole step to my third. Now this is the way I notate a half step. It's kind of a slash. That's not a real good slash, but let's try that again. There we go. That's a little bit better. That's a whole step to my fourth, so we're using Roman numerals here. The reason I use Roman numerals is because you can use uppercase and lowercase, and that shows you your major and your minor. So a whole step to my fifth, a whole step to my sixth, a whole step to my seventh. I should notate on here. Let's see, let's move that. Gotta move something else there for a second. I want to notate on here that that should be your diminished. So that little circle is diminished, or you could write D-I-M. And that's another half step. So in the key of D, I want to just write this out. That would be D major. E, and because it's lowercase, is minor. Now it's another whole step. There's a natural half step between E and F. So this is going to be called F sharp minor. Then a half step to G. A whole step to A. A half step, or a whole step, I'm sorry, to minor. So it's B minor. A whole step to C sharp, and this is the diminished. So D-I-M, or as some people write it, it's C sharp. The shorthand would be diminished like that. And then it's a half step to D. So when I'm playing that in my scale, it's just the same way. If I show you the guitar neck again here. So if I'm playing like your D major scale, played one wrong note there. And this is what I love about this, is you can actually hear that scale when you play these chords. It's a little bit hard to play that fast. It sounds really nice. The other thing I really love about this is that you can actually, when you know what chord you're playing, so that's a D. And the next chord I went to in that introduction was all the way up in the 9th fret. That's an A. And then a G. B minor, sorry. F sharp minor. E minor. D. So maybe that's like the introduction of your song. Well, what I really like about this is once you know how to name those, you can move that to your open chords, which sound a little bit more like a verse to a song. So it's D, and then A, and G, B minor, F sharp minor, E minor, back to the beginning, which is D. So again, let's review exactly what we're talking about here. I'll move my video down to the other side of the screen again. The root is on the B string. That's one of the most important things to remember. If you don't know the notes on your B string, it's going to make it really hard to move these chords around. So the B string is B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, E sharp. I'm sorry, that should be just F. You can call it E sharp, but it's an F. F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B. So that is a D major chord. I'm using the D root with the major shape. D minor chord, using the D root with the minor shape, or D diminished chord, D root with the diminished shape. So let's review those one more time. Looking at your chordal scale, you start with the root, which is a D major. So if you were writing something down, you would say the first chord in my chordal scale is that's the key I'm in, is a major chord. The second chord in that chordal scale, if I'm going up the scale, just like the, I'm sorry, played that note wrong again. If I'm trying to make it sound like that and following that scale, then it's an E minor. That's going to take my root a whole step, and then I switch it to minor. So I go from D to E, switch it to minor. Then my third chord is going to be F sharp minor. Trying to find my mouse pointer here. So F sharp minor is going next. So it's another whole step, and I keep it minor, keep that shape minor. Now this slash tells me I'm going to move the root a half step. So I go from F sharp to G, and it's going to go back to major. So that's the benefit of using those uppercase and lower cases. It's a quick reminder that you're going to go back to major. Then a whole step. You're moving the root a whole step and keeping the shape major. The important thing is, because as you're changing the shape, you might think to yourself, I don't know how to tell where I'm moving the whole step or half step from. You're moving it from your root. So all the notes on your B string, that's what's naming your chord. And it really helped me when I was studying this to write down the names of the notes on the string, and as I was moving the chord around, kind of renaming the chords every time I moved it, so I knew what I was doing. So then I go a whole step. Sorry, I lost my cursor again. A whole step to B minor. A whole step to C sharp diminished. And then finally my whole step to D. So I really hope that you find that helpful. That it helps you unlock a couple new mysteries that you've been hoping to solve. And check back later for more videos.